Hey, don't worry. It's gonna be fine. I know tornadoes and thunderstorms and things like that can be a little scary, but I mean, personally, I like them. I think they're kind of cool, but that's just me. I mean, I honestly don't think it's gonna make it our way anyway. I mean, the radar makes it look like the storm's gonna turn east before it gets down to us. But this storm ain't shit, seriously. Hey, you remember when I joined that cult and you've always wanted to hear about it, but I just didn't feel like talking about it? Well, I think this is the perfect night to tell that story. So, once upon a time, I joined this cult. We were all rappers, and we all practiced magic.
Magic.
It all started when I was in my 20s after the longest relationship I'd ever been in, well, ended. It was a messy breakup and I was devastated and heartsick. I became cold, uncaring, and aloof. I also was super pissed at my family at the time. They'd been completely unsupportive, and I felt truly alone. But I had a longing for family and for companionship and needed to feel acceptance. Got into a little trouble here and there with drugs, shady people, just trying to figure stuff out. I'd always wanted to be a rapper, though. I actually used to be in freestyle circles in school during lunch. Well, when I felt brave enough. My lyrics were always on point. At least that's what everyone said. And it was a way to really just get my thoughts out there. I also practiced magic. MySpace had blown up and I was using it to find someone to rebound with and get over my old flame. Anyway, I met some friends with similar interests on MySpace, and this led me and this dude I met to start an underground rap group. The few people who knew about us liked us, but, we didn't make any money or anything. So a bunch of industry type shit happened and I ended up moving to Tulsa. While I was there, we took a trip into Texas to do a little backyard show. At the show, I met this new group of people who felt completely like home. You know that feeling you get when you meet your people? It's just familiar. You feel accepted. I didn't want to go back to Tulsa, but I had work the next day and, real life obligations. One thing led to another, and the group I was with left me to go back to Tulsa. And there was my ass stranded in Texas. Alone. Once again, story of my life. One of the people I met in Tulsa, this lady named Darlene, came up to me when she saw me crying. She started comforting me the way a mother would. Then she said, if you ever move back to Texas, you have a home here. Unfortunately, I believed her. And about a week later, I hopped on a Greyhound and moved back to Texas, where I started living among 35 complete strangers. They were incredibly kind to me, and were all members of a traveling company of performance artists called Harvest Eve. Our home base was on this farmland that some guy owned. He allowed us to park all of our vehicles there, and we lived like hobos or bush hippies out of several trucks, conversion vans, and an old school bus that we also used to travel to and from out-of-town gigs. Imagine a traveling Renaissance fair made up of cosplayers, burlesque performers, and rappers, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what Harvest Eve was all about. We made all of our money from the gigs. We played at various clubs and hip-hop festivals in the area. Some of the burlesque girls would also get side gigs stripping for bachelor parties and shit like that. But we shared all the money that we made, and we lived pretty comfortably there on that farm. It was like a close-knit family where everyone was creative and deeply spiritual. There was this little wooded area that formed the boundary between where we camped out and the rest of the farm. They called this place the Enchanted Forest, and we'd always go down there to chill, smoke a bowl, whatnot. These kids would start to philosophize, and I came to realize that they shared this sort of mystical code that was based on the spiritual properties of the equinoxes. The autumnal equinox and Halloween were both very sacred to them. They were all cosplayers of one type or another. Many of them were juggalos at one point, so it was like Halloween every day. But Halloween was holy, and its symbolism seemed woven into the fabric of every interaction. In the Enchanted Forest, I overheard words like mummer and souling scrolls, and weird, curious shit like that. Remember, I had started practicing negative magic, so these little words I kept hearing would just kind of pop out at me. I also noticed several people with these scars on their hands, and they all had a tendency to wear a lot of the same colors: orange, black, gold. And the scars, by the way, I later found out were brands. It was a magic symbol designed by their leader, and every member of the group had to eventually get one. I never did, thankfully. I wish I'd known then that Harvest Eve was a straight-up cult. I had joined a cult of rappers, and we all practiced magic. The leader of the cult, this kid that everyone called Father Jack, or Jack Father, explained to me as soon as I gained his trust, or so he claimed, that mummer magic or souling magic was this thing where we all have an almost demon-like energy that likes to go souling. When you go souling, you strengthen your negative powers. They called this energy the mummer because it likes to put on disguises, but it doesn't disguise itself in a mask or your dad's old clothes. It disguises itself in human flesh. It disguises itself in you. Jack Father tried to explain to me that the mummers weren't demons and weren't evil, but if you think about it, yeah, they kind of were. The mummers lived inside all of us, but some of us were the chosen ones. Everyone in Harvest Eve was led to believe that we were the chosen ones. Of course, some of us were more chosen than others. Jack Father, of course, had the most powerful mummer energy, because of course he did. He invented the shit for this cult. He'd convinced a lot of girls in this cult to sleep with him by telling them they were extra special chosen ones, like him. And even though he and Darlene were married, she didn't care. Hell, she did the same thing. Certain things took place whenever the mummers would go souling. Your appearance would change. When the mummers were in control and ready to feed on energy, you'd bare your teeth and your eyes would have turned pitch black. To be honest with you, it sounded silly and I never really believed it, but I wanted to. And in a way, that's more terrifying. I wanted Jack Father's approval so badly that I faked belief in this faith. I told myself I'd do my own magic in my own way. Nobody would ever know. Over the next year, a bunch of us from Harvest Eve formed our own little network of rappers and our own small indie label. I later found out that Jack Father was just using us as a stepping stone to promote his own career, and basically, we'd earn the money, make the connections, and then he'd collect the money and the clout. Anyway, at some point he commanded me, yes, like stone tablets down from the mountain, commanded me to make a beat and write a song about the mummers and souling magic and to bless the song. And I wanted Jack Father's approval more than anything, so I did it. So even though I wasn't a true believer, I took all that I had learned from Jack Father's teachings about the mummers and their faith, that I could write a song using all of their terminology to tell the story, and then just put my own magic, my own power, behind my lyrics. I performed my verse for Jack Father, and I could tell that he was filled with rage against me, but he didn't say a word. I could just feel it, you know? And he grinned, which made him look so psychotic. And then he walked away, and I didn't hear from him at all for an entire day. Darlene then came up to me and said, "Hey, Jack really loved your verse. We're scheduling a session to record it tomorrow." Well, okay then. I was first on the song. I put all of my own power and energy behind these lyrics, but I felt major stress that was already brewing inside of me by that point. I was already very fearful and constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if I was about to be the next one punished. We went through a period for 2 months in the summer where we were constantly on the road. Every single time we'd play the track I wrote, lights would flicker in and out and the CD would skip on very specific lyrics. There was one part I would say, "Step up against the liar," and whenever Jack Father or Darlene was around, you'd hear it skip and say, "Liar, liar, liar, liar," over and over. Whenever I was alone, it would skip and get stuck on the word leave, 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 on the part where I'd say, "Leave it all behind." At the time, I was concerned that Jack Father or Darlene would hear it skipping on liar and it would make them suspicious of me. Make them think I couldn't be trusted. But now I fully believe that something was warning me to get the out of Harvest Eve. There was another lyric where I'd say, "Crash and burn and fall," and the CD would skip and repeat, "Crash, crash, fall, crash, crash, fall," like spooky shit like that. One time, I was practicing the song and some of the girls I was rapping with said, "OMG, your eyes just went black. I think your mummer's here." They said my eyes looked totally dark and empty, like pools of black ink. Then we had to perform it live. Before every performance, I'd do a particular spell, which required a blood offering. Nothing big like in the movies. I'd just prick my finger, use a drop of my own blood, and then whenever I'd cast a spell, the candles would flicker erratically, like each of the flames would dance out of sync, as if there was a breeze blowing, even though the air in the room was still. I'd do this ritual, and then we'd perform. When you rap in front of an audience, you're not standing there just reading off lyrics. It's a straight up workout. You have to get super hype. You have to put enough energy and passion into your performance to get the audience all riled up. A lot of the music that I did was on the spectrum of either horror rap or diss raps, and all of it got a strong reaction from the audience. But this song did not do that. This song put the audience in a complete trance. Every time I performed this particular song, I wasn't in control. The energy, call it my mummer if you'd like, was behind the wheel. And the audience was just as possessed as I was. It was like performing to a mirror, because the audience would crouch when I crouched and mimic the weird spaced out expression in my face. I wasn't the only person to notice this either. Lots of people would comment on it after the show. And I think my song cast out all sorts of weird negative energy, and it splashed all over everyone around me. I get so mad at myself thinking about how careless I was when I summoned the mummer. I didn't care how I might affect other people. Fast forward to Wednesday, September 22nd, 2010, the vernal equinox. This was the most important day of the year for Harvest Eve, according to Jack Father and Darlene. The equinox was a time when the veil between our world and the underworld was lifted. The barrier between light and dark was almost non-existent. That's when your mummer was most likely to take you as its disguise and cause mischief. We were performing at a 3-day festival called Lost Souls, with a Z at the end, at a campground outside of Broken Arrow. It was headlined by a dungeon punk band called Edison Frankenstein. Now, they performed on the second night, and the other big act, a psychobilly band called the Bat Dragons, opened for them on the same night. For whatever reason, the rappers from Harvest Eve were closing out the third night, even though all the acts everyone came to see had already performed. It was a weird, dark carnival kind of vibe, and an eclectic mix of people in attendance. Goths, punks, juggalos, psychos, and betties, you name it. A lot of fights broke out, as you can probably imagine. So that last day, the equinox, most of Harvest Eve was wearing masks or costumes as part of their mummer magic. And we held magic circles and other rituals at various points throughout the day, and then we do the rap show at sundown. Now, don't ask me why. But I didn't perform my usual ritual before this performance. I cut a lot of the more dark-sided stuff out of my incantations so that it was a protection ritual more than anything else. Less negative energy for sure. Most people had already left the festival at this point because no one was really there to see us. But the people who stayed there were wired as hell. I got on stage, performed this one song, but we never finished it because somebody in the audience got stabbed and everything had to stop so that an ambulance could pick the guy up. And then after the performance, I wasn't feeling so well. The rest of the Harvest Eve people had decided to pack up our shit and drive back to the farm in Texas that same night. But I was so sick that I could barely move, and whenever I tried to move, I felt like I was drowning. I would fall over coughing so hard, I would throw up. And I thought I was going to die. I begged Jack Father and Darlene to get me to a hospital, and nothing came of that. They just gave me a nice bottle of Tylenol cold and flu that I drank like it was water. I had one of the vans drop me and my boyfriend off at a motel and said that, we'd meet up with them later, after I was feeling better. I still knew a few people in Tulsa who'd be willing to give us a ride from Broken Arrow back to the farm. So Jack Father, Darlene, and the rest of them fucked off back to Texas in 3 vans and left me and my boyfriend behind. I tried to sleep off whatever I was sick with, but I kept hearing whispers saying, "Leave, leave, leave, leave," or "They're gonna kill you," or "You have no chance." And usually those voices would be followed by some gut-wrenching screams. I want to say it was an auditory hallucination from being so sick, like a fever dream, and lights flickered in our hotel room and shit started shaking almost like a mini earthquake. I heard the noises that may or may not have been auditory hallucinations get really loud, like I was deaf to everything around me except for "Leave, leave, leave, leave." Then everything went dark. I felt a hand press firmly on my back. It was a reassuring hand, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at ease. I was definitely alone in my room because my boyfriend was out behind the motel smoking a blunt. I was alone, but I felt the strength and warmth of this hand on my back. I checked the clock and it was around 3:30 a.m. This had to have been a fever dream, right? Because when I went back to sleep, I had some strange nightmares about the world ending. One in particular where I was walking down the hallway of an empty house and all of a sudden all the windows broke. I was engulfed in a tornado and then everything went completely black and white, like a film negative. And the very next day, I wasn't sick anymore. But I wasn't the only one who had a rough night. Remember when I told you about the CDs skipping on the phrase, "crash and burn and fall"? While they were driving back to the farm, Jack Father and the others drove into a hailstorm that came up on them out of nowhere. Some of them said that some of the hailstones were almost baseball-sized. A big-ass hailstone busted the windshield out of the van driving in front. They lost control, skidded off the road, and fell into a dry creek bed. When they crashed, the driver was thrown through the windshield and killed. There were 4 other people in the car. 2 of them suffered mild concussions. 1 girl broke a couple of ribs, and another girl f***ed her hand up so bad that they had to amputate it. It was the hand that had that Magick symbol branded on it, by the way. Before any rescue vehicles could arrive, flames started licking up from the hood of the van. Now you tell me, was something trying to warn me not to drive to Texas with them that night? I escaped the cult later that same year. I was almost 28, so I was in Harvest Eve for nearly 4 years. I listen to the song now and I just have to laugh about it. All the memories flood me, but I'm not even remotely afraid of that song anymore. I just remember how I felt, and then I remember the unexplainable f***ery that was happening. There are two morals to this story. One, people aren't always who they say they are. Everyone can be pursued and manipulated into becoming anything that person wants them to be. The trick is to always be aware of who you encounter, because they don't always have your best intentions at heart. Sometimes people will see you at your most vulnerable and just use you up. And two, words have power, but only if you grant them that power.
Are you looking for a new adventure? Did you ever want to visit the city where all your nightmares reside? Well, you're in luck. Join us, your tour guides, Christine and Jen, to visit Nopeville, where you will be personally escorted on an all-inclusive trip through the city and see all possibilities of terror and fright.
You'll see all sorts of things on your tours, including, but definitely not limited to, the paranormal, true crime, the supernatural, and more. If you're into all that and enjoy a little dark humor, book your tour today and nope right along with us. Check us out on our website at nopevillepodcast.com to see where you can listen to Nopeville today.
We're Malice After Midnight,
a podcast that focuses on true crime.
We want you to feel like you're part of the conversation.
And sometimes we deal with pretty dark subject matter.
But we always manage to have a good time.
She dragged the body into a closet before she bled the body out and cut it into 9 pieces.
9 pieces, okay.
Now the
Christine's
following...
counting arms and legs. There's 4, 2 arms, 2 legs.
I mean, I'm counting.
The head is a piece.
4, 5, cut the body in half. That's 6, 7. There's 2 more pieces. I'm not sure. Maybe she cut the feet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 9, and the head, and left the body. So hands, feet, legs, arms, head, body.
Shoulders, knees, and toes. Knees and toes. So check us out. We're Malice After Midnight with Tina, Steve, and Christine.
Hi, my name is Julie, and I am one of the co-hosts of Gone But Never Forgotten with my husband Lance. We focus on stories of people who have gone missing and have never been found, and those that have been murdered and their cases remain unsolved. We give a voice to those at the center of the story who have yet to be found or yet to have closure. Take in the stories that we bring to you and help to ensure that the subjects of these stories, while gone, are never forgotten. Search for Gone But Never Forgotten on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you take in your podcasts.
Hi everyone, it's Elise from True Crime Cat Lawyer. That's right, I've combined my 3 favorite things into a podcast: cats, true crime, and lawyering. Every other Thursday, my co-host Winston and I bring you a new case from the Pacific Northwest. Winston is my sassy sidekick with a mustache who can often be found donning a bow tie. In other words, she's my cat. Winston and I are passionate about true crime, and we love doing this podcast. As of this recording, we've released over 30 regular episodes and a few bonus episodes. Our episodes are focused on the victims and sharing their stories, something we take a lot of pride in. We're working hard to produce true crime content in an ethical way. Plus, every quarter, Winston and I donate our ad proceeds and Patreon proceeds to a true crime or animal-related nonprofit organization. If you're from the Pacific Northwest or you just enjoyed true crime, Winston and I would love for you to check out our show. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Good Pods. We hope you'll join us for some true crime in the Pacific Northwest.
I'm Edward October. For more true, true-ish, and classic tales of horror and the paranormal, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to ring the bell so you don't miss anything. Or find all of our links at octoberpodvhs.com. Octoberpod, retro horror for bold individualists.